Is Chaos Zero Nightmare worth it? I feel like this is a pretty loaded question. After putting over 100 plus hours into the game, I feel like it is definitely a lot of strong points that really make this a solid game. But I also feel like there's some things that they could definitely tighten up on that would make the game that much better. And I want to talk about all those things. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into it. So first things first, I'll show you guys what I currently have on my account. Yes, to answer the question, I am free to play. So I feel like, I got a pretty valid opinion here. But we are obviously at the 40 cap. You can see here my units that I've invested in: Rin, Hugo, Tressa, Maribel, Ray, and then of course Mika. Now again, with my overall progression, I personally have been pushing with what I like. So I've been mainly maining Rin, Hugo, and of course Mika. I just pulled Orlia, so that is such a huge 3 units to have on my account: Rin, Hugo, and Orlia. Orlia also is filling a attribute that I do not have on my account yet, so she's the first unit, and I think she's like one of like 2 units I think that has this attribute. So yeah, that actually was a huge W. I'm pretty happy and hyped about getting her, so I feel like she's definitely going to be an extra addition, or a really nice addition for me to work on at some point. But I already kind of solidified the 6 units that I want to work on, so here we are, right? But the main thing is just simply put, without duplicates, even without a ton of investment, the game plays and operates very smoothly. I feel like a lot of the units, if not all of them, are basically all balanced. Any areas or gaps that you may be missing, you can kind of build into them. Like for example, say my Hugo, he's kind of like typically your follow-up character, but I kind of wanted to make a build for him that was AoE focused, and then also make a build for him that was single target focused. So the build I currently have on him right now is just completely single target focused. But one of the other builds that I use on him, which again is just kind of showing some of the earlier game things, but I have 2 maneuvering fires on him. So because it has the Outbreak of War on it, it allows me to start the fight out with that, and I just absolutely nuke the first set of enemies in a wave. So it's really good for AoE farming and just kind of farming, like, simulation and stuff like that. So I feel like they did a really good job with allowing you to have accessibility in terms of the types of builds that you can build. Now, I think the caveat or the catch-22 to this, of course, is the process of doing your builds, and like kind of like the extensiveness of like doing nightmare mode, like, because nightmare mode is pretty hard even in just chaos manifestation before you even get into the zero system. So I think that is still really important for them to kind of, like what they mentioned, get a handle on that overall transition, making things a little bit smoother, more seamless, and just a lot quicker, so players don't feel like they're burning out or exhausting themselves to get these like builds, right? Like, I personally enjoyed it, but I know that some people, and not everybody, also has the same amount of allotted time to be able to make these types of things happen. And of course, with the risk, definitely more rewards. So they're giving us more like promotion mats. So they did kind of touch on that a little bit, but that's definitely something I know that is a must have in the game, considering how many different builds I've done at this point. Now, the other thing is that, when we're looking at fundamentally a gacha, how impactful are obviously duplicates, right? I would say, like, for me, I haven't gotten any duplicates. So I have seen, though, a lot of gameplay where people have had like maxed out units. They obviously have wells in the game. And yeah, there is definitely a huge difference, because some of these effects are like pretty busted. If you're able to start out with these, and it just makes your unit that much stronger. But the good thing is that there are ways for you to obviously get like the memory code for Hugo, like after you summon X amount of times. Now, what I will say, and what's a really good offset in my opinion, is you could always add something like a universal code for 5 stars, 4 stars, if you want to do something like that. Probably really just for 5 stars, for both not only partners but also for combatants, because I feel like if you have events, it doesn't have to be reoccurring all the time, but every once in a while, having an event where players can play for something like that, it really is going to kind of soften the blow in having to deal with a 50-50. Also, with you still having to deal with like doing X amount of pools, etc., right? I always feel like in a lot of the games that I've played that have implemented systems like that, it just ends up becoming much more well received, considering that there's always going to be more units getting added to the game. From what it looks like, a lot of units are getting added to the general pool. So the general pool, the more units there are, the harder harder it is for you to be able to actually isolate and get the specific unit that you want. And even if you were pulling that much, is a limitation to how many dupes you can specifically get. So again, that is something that I think that for what we can at least see, I don't know what they have planned in the future. That's something that I think that would actually really help the game out a ton, having a universal currency that people can get at some point. Now, another thing that I actually think is actually really going to be impactful or could help out this game, because I noticed this a constant trend that a lot of people have asked for in a lot of other games, and I think that it is something that could be pretty nice to have, is either having some form of a reset ticket or also having a reset event. Now, the reason why I feel like this could be pretty beneficial is because, you know, again, depending on the grind to actually get mats and materials, you know, you may be at a point where you want to reset or start over or try something else out. I think that this actually is a good metric to have in games, especially when they're fresh, because we're not even like a full weekend yet. And I feel like this actually would have been something really nice for a lot of players, like to have a separate event that would have had like, you know, say 3 reset chances, right? So that you could try some units out, see if you like them, invest in them. If you don't like them, you get those mats back, right? There's a lot of different things that they could do with a feature like that, and it's always well received. So I feel like, again, just something that they could sprinkle in to maybe add to the beginner process or make it a little bit smoother is that, right? But here's the other thing. I will say they did do a good job with rectifying a lot of the different issues, compensating for it, and then being very responsive and communicating to players about all these different issues. Because to be honest with you guys, I think that that's one of the biggest things, is that, like, I'm at this point, I don't care if it's a gacha or a game with no gacha. I want developers that are responsive. I come from other games, mind you. I think some people misconstrue the idea of not having a gacha with the game being good, which is not necessarily true. I play games like Path of Exile, and for those of you guys that play Path of Exile, especially 2, which is, you know, obviously the newer of the in the franchise, they were kind of treating that game like garbage. You know, like, they didn't really seem to have a direction. They didn't know what they were doing. They really weren't communicating stuff well. They were just nerfing a whole bunch of stuff, and it was upsetting a lot of players. And, you know, that is something that, again, a game that doesn't have gacha, it's just a straight up a looter, right? Like, and you really have to really look at how devs communicate. It doesn't matter if it's a gacha or not a gacha. Dev communication, I think, is number one and is key if you want your community to continue to grow and to also stick with you, right? I think the other thing too that I feel like they've done really well is they actually have layered content. And what I mean by that is there's actually other things to do. Like, I know they're talking about revamping and making things quicker to get to, but there are different things for you to get to, or you can like visibly see, like, okay, at level 50 I get the Basin of Hyperspace Dimensional Dusk, or at level 40 you hit the Zero system, and it comes with its own set of rewards. So I think that that definitely was something that they did well. I think, again, going back to the point that has been made by a lot of people, it's just making it to where your saved data and builds that you're really honestly putting a lot of time into are just really OP. You want players to have fun, and that's the thing I think sometimes gets like mixed up in like the cesspool of trying to make a game make money, is that they make it so like unfun that you really don't care, you know, after a while of what the process is or not. Like, you want to have fun the whole time through and through, or as much as possible. Like, not to say there's not going to be some stuff that makes you want to pull your hair out, or in my case, like, you know, stretch my scalp. But I will say it is definitely something that could be, you know, a really, really big point in retaining and keeping players. Now, outside of that, I think the other thing that I think I would like to really see in Chaos Zero Nightmare, and this is something that I just think that, like, I bring this up all the time with games, right? So let's actually go to it. So we have the Battle Pass, and the Battle Pass right here does have, okay, it does have, like, you know, agents or partners that you can actually recruit from this, which again is still a good, like, value thing, right? Like, I don't think this is bad by no means, but I always like to say, if you can add a little bit of extra value to get somebody to buy this, they will buy it. And the number one thing that always tends to do that is skins. I would say personally, with the way this game is set up, again, I get it. Budget is a whole nother thing. The animations are pretty sick, but dude, if you start like, oh, come on, dude, a Ren skin or a Hugo skin, or, you know, whoever you like skin, right? Like Maribel skin, like, come on, dude, you telling me you wouldn't buy that? You know, like, I think that definitely is something that just helps with like kind of engagement, logging in. Like if you do like a free skin for one of the characters that everybody has, like say Mika, for example, or Owen, I think that that's definitely a good metric to always play into, because people like skins. It doesn't affect progression. It is something that a lot of players definitely are always keen and into. And like I said, you know, it is definitely a thing that you can monetize a lot more than just directly trying to do gacha. I feel like the more that you can make your gacha friendlier, typically the more people will spend. But there's also those extra things that people can buy, whether it be cosmetics or things to design their art facility, etc. That's just going to kind of draw them in and make them more attached to the universe, right? And of course, story wise, I think the story is actually pretty solid. I know people are looking for a more demented story, but I'm currently in chapter 5. I'm about to push and read this now, but I like the story so far. I feel like it is really solid. You do kind of get a sense of like the situation in the world and how everything is kind of transpiring and is messed up, and it almost kind of feels like they're telling a story about gacha gamers. But either way, I feel like, yeah, that's actually pretty cool. The battle missions are actually really solid as well. So I feel like through and through, like they really have made a fun game. Even with the auto feature for your save data that you've already collected, it is still pretty good, right? Like it's not bad by no means. So I personally have been having a ton of fun on this game. And I think that, again, when we're talking about is it worth it, I feel like personally the one thing that makes this game worth it is that it is fun. I have not really seen too many people saying it's not fun. I obviously think, of course, within that collective group, you're going to see some people that may have had some issues with the server, you know, etc. Obviously, some of the translations and certain things were not perfect, but I think that a lot of these things they've either addressed, they're hot fixing, they're compensating for. So I can't really be mad, because if they weren't doing anything, if they weren't being responsive, if they, you know, were just kind of letting the game fester and just trying to milk as much money as they possibly could, I think this would be a whole nother story. So I'm actually pretty excited to see what else they're going to pull out of the hat when it comes down to the overall experience that we're having in this game. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Again, I think it is still a gacha, so of course tread lightly when it comes down to your habits, spending, etc. But nonetheless, I will say this is definitely a gacha. You can play free to play, enjoy yourself, and just really, like I said, just aiming for the things you like. That's what I've been personally been doing, and I've been having a blast. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Everyone, stay blessed, and I'll catch you guys in the next Chaos Zero Nightmare video.